Welcome to lesson 21 of business accounting, and in this lesson we will learn about manufacturing overheads. Now, our agenda for this lesson is to see what is meant by manufacturing overheads. I also want to give you some examples of overheads, manufacturing overheads, and then we need to distinguish between budgeted overheads, applied and actual overheads. First of all, what is meant by manufacturing cost? Now, before we even go to that, we need to understand that only manufacturing businesses will have manufacturing cost. And why is that? If we look at a bank renders a service. So in other words, they don't manufacture any product, so they will not have any manufacturing cost. The same with a school or university. They are rendering services, educational services, so there's no manufacturing, therefore no manufacturing cost. So it's only your factories or manufacturing businesses where you will find manufacturing cost. Now, what is meant by manufacturing cost? Those are all your costs involved in the manufacturing process. Now, if we look at the manufacturing process and maybe we are saying we are baking pancakes, then we will have direct labor, the people that's going to bake the pancakes, and then we will have direct material, that will be all your ingredients, and we will have other indirect costs also. So these indirect costs can be indirect material, indirect labor, or other services, maybe the rent of the factory building. That can also be a manufacturing cost. So if we look at manufacturing overheads, remember now we discussed manufacturing cost. So now we are looking at manufacturing overheads. And this is really all the costs other than your direct cost. So that will be your indirect labor, your indirect material, and other costs. Now, very simple examples of overhead. Now, remember, this list is not complete. You can have more examples, but this is only to give you an idea of what can be seen as an overhead. So, your depreciation on equipment. Now, remember, we are talking about equipment in the factory or in the manufacturing process. All right, property taxes on the production facility, rent on the factory building, salaries of maintenance staff, salaries of factory managers or supervisors, salaries of the quality control staff if they are different from the factory managers, stationery in the factory, those can be your job cards maybe, water and electricity again in the factory, and then the wages of building cleaning staff. These can all be seen as manufacturing overheads. Now, you can ask, but why is the factory manager or supervisor, why are these people seen as an overhead and not a direct labor? Remember, this manager or supervisor will oversee all the functions or all the jobs in the factory, but not only, they don't oversee only one job, they oversee all the jobs in the factory. So their supervision cannot be linked to a certain product, therefore it's called an overhead. Now, the last one in this lesson is to distinguish between our budgeted, applied, and actual overheads. The first one, budgeted overheads, and I can now take you back to your pocket money. At the beginning of the month or a week, you will receive pocket money, or for those of you who are employed, you will receive a salary. And now you must sit down before the period starts. So maybe on the 1st of the month or on the 30th, and then for the next month, you need to do some planning, because you need to see that you have so much money and this is what I can spend and this is what I maybe need to put away for the rainy days. So your planning is always before the period. And this is really the key word there, planning or budgeted overheads. This is what happens before the period. So now the business will budget, or they will draw up a budget on the overheads that they expect to have. The next one is applied overheads. Now, manufacturing overheads are then applied to certain cost centers or objects. Now, remember the supervisor's salary. He oversees all the products in the factory or in the manufacturing process. So his salary should now be linked to all the products. So a certain part of his salary will go towards product A, a certain part of his salary can go towards product B. So this is now how we will decide on how to apply the overheads. And we will use a predetermined rate to assign this cost, but in lesson number 22, I will take you through the steps on how to find a predetermined rate to assign cost. And when do we do this application? We do that during the financial year and then after the financial year. You will remember budgeted overheads, the key word there was before, and apply this during and after. One is actual overheads. So now we look at what did we actually spend, or what was the actual cost. This is then the actual overheads. Now, why can't we use the actual overheads when we plan? Because when we plan at the beginning or before the financial period, we don't know how much we are going to spend. It can be that there will be a price increase in certain of the raw materials, so we won't be able to know the exact amount that we are going to spend. Now that we know what is meant by manufacturing overheads and we know the different terminology, in lesson number 22, I will take you through the allocation of overheads.